Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very accomplished and experienced marketer from Hong Kong, Mr. Alan Wong. Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ash. It's my honor to be here.
Thank
And I really thank you for your invitation. And I've been anticipating this for the last few weeks.
Thank you so much. Alan is the founder of ToAsia.biz, and in his own words, he's a programmer turned consultant, turned salesperson, turned marketer. So, Alan, before we start talking about ToAsia.biz, tell me about your own amazing journey in brief.
Yeah, so I was born in Hong Kong, and at an early age, my family moved to Australia, where I was raised at.
Mm.
And I started my career as a programmer because I was quite an introvert. Like, I
Mhm.
don't really like to talk with people,
Mm.
just like to play my video games and work with machines. I
Yeah.
mean, this is how I sort of grew up, and also in the university age, this is the kind of activities I like. I like sport, but other than that, my interaction with people were very limited. I don't like to go to parties and stuff, even when I was young.
Right.
So it's a very interesting journey, who I became through my journey, because when I started doing programming, I made a few programs back in the days when the .com was really, in the flow,
Mm.
where everyone was building websites and web applications, where I learned a lot about talking to people, getting requirements, building to what they need.
Mm.
And then I found my skill in consulting. I
Mhm.
feel I was quite a good listener
Mhm.
and quite a good person in providing solutions to people.
Mm.
And as you probably know, back in the day, in the year 2000, when that .com boom, everyone was a consultant.
Mm.
So there was a bit of an image where, hey, I want to fly everywhere with my suitcase
Mhm.
and consult and help people. So this
Mm.
is how I became a consultant and took on a career of a consultant in Hong Kong, and
Mm.
slowly moved my way as I was working for this US software company. I was slowly moving my way to become pre-sales, where I get better at presentation, and then I was given opportunities to share my experience and journey, public speaking. As I move on, I became a full-on salesperson, selling and running quotas for the company.
Mm.
Now, I did that for about 16 years for the US software company, and
Mm.
then joined a German unicorn startup for
Mm.
3 years during COVID, and grow their regional office here in Asia Pacific from nothing to 20 people, and doing 8 digits revenues here in such a short time. And then after that, I really saw the power of social selling.
Mm.
So I decided, I start writing things on LinkedIn and getting traction, and really enjoyed that, because I also enjoy going to events. So sometimes you feel things that you do, people don't notice or they don't engage with your post, but a lot of people come up to me and say, hey, I noticed your LinkedIn, I'm learning a lot. So
Mm.
it's really appreciative. So the way I see it, be a marketer, it's being able to sell to the mass. Whereas when you're doing a sales, you are training your skill into selling to one. So this is basically what we do
Amazing.
now, and we help company um, expand into Asia. Now, when we say expansion, it's very much creating a presence, creating a brand, so that people know you. Because
Mm.
initially, no matter how good your product is, people won't buy from you, even
Mm.
if they don't know you.
Very
So
interesting.
therefore, we help company by leveraging on our brand,
Mm.
and then we associate with their brand to help them create a presence, so people know that
Fascinating.
they exist.
What an amazing journey, Alan. Thank you for sharing it. So let's talk about ToAsia.biz, which is the company that you founded. And clearly, you do support a lot of SaaS, software as a service company, to enter Asian markets. What are some of the key factors to consider when developing a go-to-market strategy for SaaS companies entering Asian markets?
I think a lot of companies do really well in their own country. So, for example, North America, Europe, Australia, there are some really good inventors or founders doing some really good stuff in their own country. Now, sometimes, obviously there are the really big ones that gets really popular, where you really hit the spot and running. But, out of the tens of thousands of startup, not everyone is going to be in that position. However, if your product is really good, naturally you are going to get some download or users from Asia, for example. It's always the case.
Right.
I work with a client in UK middle of last year, and then tell them to dig up some data, and we actually found out, hey, 9% of your users actually came from Asia Pacific. Yeah. So using that data and further analyze it and then see where the richer countries are within the APAC market would be the best way to get started.
Very interesting.
Now, we say to Asia, I mean, Ash, you and me live in Asia. We know where the biggest population lies. It's India, China, Indonesia.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not necessarily where the population lies is where your market is, especially with software. Because I don't know if you know, like one of my biggest culture shock when I moved from Australia, developing my career, coming to Hong Kong, I found companies and generally the Asian culture don't really appreciate paying for software that much. So they don't appreciate the value of software, and often the expectation is, oh, great product. Is it free? It's the question that they ask. So I guess there's also that age, I guess, as I'm growing up, right? Growing up in the era of Windows. I remember when, even as a student, when you're coming to Asia, you go to these markets or Hawker's Place, people selling CDs, free software. So I guess that just sort of build up that culture, that people expectation. And now with the world of software as a service, everything is on the cloud. It's a lot easier to charge for your software. But I think going back to my story about analyzing where your user lies and then start your marketing and sales effort with your go-to-market plan in these richer countries really do make sense. So with the whole of Asia, these richer countries typically are Australia, Hong Kong, and Singapore. So that's why you see a lot of these regional headquarters of Google, Facebook, either land in these places, a lot of them land in Singapore these days.
Very interesting. And Alan, when you talk about one, introducing companies and second, scaling them up, what are some of the biggest scaling challenges in Asia? Because, every country is separate. And barring the 2 or 3 large countries that you just spoke about, the others are relatively smaller countries. What are some of the scaling challenges in Asia, and how can you help companies address them?
Yeah. So I guess one of the challenge is from what you asked from the previous question, people don't know where to start. I mean, when they think of Asia, it's a big place. But what I just explained, if you just look at Australia, Hong Kong, Singapore, where as a Western startup, you can start with what you have, which is your whole English package. Because in Australia, Hong Kong, and Singapore, people in business, if you are especially doing B2B software, they can use English. So culture is definitely a big challenge for people. And when they think about their plan, often they think too much. Oh, Asia is so big. Where should I start? A lot of people, like, for example, one of the European startup I work with, the only thing that they told me is, go into China because China is booming, e-commerce industry really big. But then they don't know that it's the culture there. The government wouldn't let you grow as a foreign enterprise, even if you have a very good product, especially if you have a very good product. They won't let you grow there. You have to find a partner to go into a joint venture.
Wow,
I mean, if you go to China, this is, all the motor vehicle companies do joint ventures, Now, the culture shock, for example, I want to share a story. This is many years ago. Even for me, growing up in Australia, I had this culture shock. Like, doing tenders in Western country. You just go to RFQ, go to the website, follow the instruction, and just submit a tender. But for example, in China, there's this culture difference. Like all the tenders from government companies, they don't do themselves. They outsource it to a tender company. So you actually have to go there, pay for a bidding ticket to go in there. But at the same time, even if the customer really like your product, they ask you like, hey, we like your product, we intend to buy from you, but you have to find the other 2 bidders.
Wow. Okay.
to come in, because the rule is that you must have 3 vendors into the tender bid. So a lot of these culture things that doesn't happen in other countries happens in Asia or in China, that you really have to adapt and have someone who has the local knowledge to help you navigate through that maze in order to get business done. Otherwise, you're not going to get it.
Fascinating, fascinating. Alan, you also talk about helping companies become profitable fast. Based on your experience, what are some of the critical steps to achieving profitability within 18 to 24 months?
So we focus very much on where the money lies. So I think the strategy that we focus on, we focus on the richer countries first, whereas the other second tier countries, you need to sort of let your presence, whether you offer a freemium kind of SaaS software, which is popular with SaaS, and then do some light marketing just to grow that presence there. So to achieve profitability fast, you really have to focus on revenue generating at a very early stage. Now, partnership, people think about partnership often as, hey, that's a quick way because find really good partners. Yeah. However, if you're a newcomer, one of the biggest challenge that we find working with companies, they think their product is heaven, right? In their own countries, which is okay. But when you come here, partners and resellers doesn't necessarily sell the best product, or they don't want to sell the best product. They want to sell the biggest margin product. Because resellers work on margin. And also works on a lot of incentives and stuff. So the culture here is, how do you get partners to sell you quickly? I mean, what support, what extra benefit are you giving them so that they're giving attention to your product? It's easy to find a partner because partners, I guess, are usually the quickest path for go-to-market when people think about it. They have established network, they have thousands of resellers. So usually they think of that as a quick way, but then they don't think about that second step. Just because a partner say, yes, I'll sign you up, doesn't mean they'll give you attention or have people look after your product and really go out there and sell you inside their big solution, working with system integrators and stuff. So therefore, I think that's often a trap that people face. Hey, I sign up with, the top 3 distributor in India, and they think, oh, we're going to make lots of money. But then after 3 months, they say, how much did you sell? Oh, no, we only had 3 orders. And you say, hey, what happened? What happened to your thousands of resellers? So you need to think about how you actually, once you signed up a partner, how you actually get them to sell for you as well.
And what are some of the key performance indicators, that will help people understand early success in a new market?
Yeah, I think especially with SaaS. So I specialize in SaaS because it's very popular, especially new startups. A lot of new startups starting, they want to get into software. And when you build software these days, you're not going to build, a set of program where you get someone to install it. It's 80% of the time is going to be on the cloud. So this market is certainly very popular with startups. So with key performance indicators, I believe with SaaS, having a free option is really important, like letting users try or use your product for free. If you think about the most successful or popular software or platform that exists in Asia, that operates in Asia today, they all have a free kind of product. Yeah.
Mm.
So therefore, that for me, that KPI, it's, hey, your product is good, right? If it's not good, even if you offer it for free, people won't use it, right? If it's good, if you offer for free, people will use it and will go viral. But I was going back to my statement about most successful software company. If you think about it, they're making billions of dollars. But if you think about it, like even Google, YouTube, Facebook, Windows to a degree, yeah, Netflix, and even now Apple TV trying to promote themselves, offer you 3 months for free before you use it. So offering a freemium model, I think it's really important in today's software as a service industry.
Fascinating. My next question is about, founders and the difference in culture across Asia. How should the role of a founder evolve in such culturally diverse markets, especially when a founder is from Western part of the world?
I think a successful international business, I think their founder should be very fascinated by the international market. I talk to a lot of startup these days in the SaaS industry, and I often tell them, not just Asia Pacific, I think when you build a SaaS company from day one, you should have an international view. Because when you put it on the cloud is international. You're not restricted. I mean, people can look for you. People will talk about a new product in the forum, and then other gurus will come to your website, even though if it's a .com.in or .com.au, wherever site it is, people will come. Yeah. So they really need that international view. But to be able to go deep into certain markets that has very strong culture, language differences, they really need, the founder really need that international mindset, I think, to be very adventurous, to be very agile, going into these markets and really finding the right partner locally to go deep. I often tell founders, I think many years ago when I was working for the US software company, they were a family business and they had 4 brothers actually from the founder working in the business. I told one of the brothers, they said, hey, you should come live in China for 2 years. Then you have a much more understanding of the market, because China was one of their priorities where they want to get into. So you should really come and live here for 2 years. I mean, you don't have to live here forever, but at least at that early stage, where they do it. Because in Asia, people are a little bit scared, but Asia is a very fascinating place. I mean, I know a lot of foreigners actually come here. The plan was to live here for a couple of years and then stay 20 years.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
So my next question is that, when companies enter different Asian markets, what should they do to manage their risks? And one big risk for software is piracy, of course.
Yes. I think they really need to find a right local advisor or partner, or if they have the budget resources, to find a really experienced GM, because I think one of the biggest risks in Asia, it's the compliance, the legal issues, tax issues, withholding tax, all these things in different countries. Even if you look at just Asian markets or Asian countries, it's very different dealing as a foreign company in Indonesia versus Thailand versus Malaysia. It's all different. Yeah. I mean, let alone China, even more complex. So that's why, like I said before, we advise the company to come in the easier places like Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, where things are a bit more straightforward. Tax are, very easy to understand, where they have an easier system. So therefore, I think that risk, it's really important to find someone, to find the advisor, to find the right firm yeah, to give you advice in that area so that you are compliant, do all the legal stuff, protect your IP, all of that from day one onwards. It's
Okay.
very hard to become viral or really popular and then come back and fix these issues. It's very, very difficult. But then often founder have a mindset of a chicken and egg. They said, oh, I don't want to spend money on that first, show me the market first. Yeah. So sometimes you get caught into a chicken and egg. I mean, there's no absolute that to say, hey, get some sales on the board before we get started. I mean,
Right.
it's always what the business owner is thinking and looking for. But in my experience, working with the companies are the ones who really understand that they really need to build the presence, have all these IP protected before they invest heavily in marketing and sales, are the ones that go really successful. And then, like you mentioned, become profitable within 2-3 years because they have the foundation to do that.
Very interesting. And Alan, my last question to you. How should SaaS companies plan their long-term strategy for sustained growth in Asia?
Look, it's a very interesting question, Ash. To me, in this modern world, when we talk about a long-term strategy, for me, a long-term strategy, 2-3 years is already a long-term strategy because the market changed so much. So many SaaS companies go out of business within, first 2-3 years. So therefore, I think the mindset for a lot of these companies, if they, have a really good product, have some really good momentum, is to build that agile culture that you can become really agile into navigating all the changes, economic impact, headwinds, all these things that come your way. One of the very important part, the long-term strategy, I suggest it's really go deep localization to go deep. Often in Asian countries, so I focus talking about Asia, prices are usually cheaper. Yeah. So the battle that you can't really high at a North American rate, and then sell at a, local Southeast Asia kind of rate. So you need to be able to build your team so that your costs align with the prices that you can target over in those countries. So to give you that long-term sustainable profit, to have the bottom line, so you can, so your business can be in attack mode or defense mode, depending on the economic period. And then you can, and that's always a good long-term strategy, right? Having profit, so you have options, and you can become agile, and then you can do different changes to adapt, and then grow or sit back a little bit and wait till the headwind goes. So that would be for me the best strategy for business.
Fascinating. And on that note, Alan, thank you so much for speaking to me about your own journey. Thank you for speaking to me about so many different aspects of Western companies, Western SaaS companies entering Asia. I think very wise advice you're giving, that start with Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, which are English speaking. I would ask you to add India, because India is also an English speaking country. But this is not just because I'm Indian. Thank you also for speaking to me about so many different aspects of managing risk, of finding the right partners in different parts of Asia. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck.
Thank you, Ash. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
And I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.